And then even in the emotional space, without spoken words perhaps, do you feel that your environment is uplifting? Do you feel like your environment is motivating, is passionate? It's good environment that uplifts you. Because sometimes without spoken words, people can, they can have a certain vibe, they can have a certain feeling, they can have certain emotions, and very strong states of emotions that can have a negative impact on you. So choose your friends wisely. Choose your environment wisely. Choose who you spend time with at what time of the day wisely. At all times of the day wisely, right? And then, now some of you may say, the people around me are somewhat negative, but I love them, I care about them, and I don't want to leave them. I'm not saying that you leave them. Perhaps invite them to the training. That's a good way to help them evolve. That's actually one of the most effective ways to help people change. Now, of course, it's when I went through my training into the space, I brought my wife along because I wanted her, who is the person who's in my environment that I spent the most time with. I want her to feel, not only uplifted. I want her to grow. I want her to experience the growth that I was experiencing. I wanted a 24/7 like support person in a sense. Not saying that I'm going to ask her for support all the time, but I want her to be there at a certain level when I'm home, and I want to be that certain level for her. So when you begin to consider, how do I set up my environment properly? Well, who do you spend the most time with? And when you begin to realize that your environment actually reflects your relationship with yourself, that actually says a lot, right? Because if you're spending time with people, sure, you may love them a lot, and without helping them change, that really, it speaks a lot about how much you're okay with an environment that you're not okay with, really. So become mindful of who you spend time with, how you spend time with them, and if they're not growing, or if they're not at in a positive way helping you, find a way to help them. Because that's what you would want to do for yourself. Once again, I'll say this. The people you choose to spend time with, especially the ones that you get to choose to spend time with, whether it's friends or colleagues or whatever, those people are very much a reflection of your relationship with yourself. Now, you may say, William, how is that even possible? These people have nothing to do with me, and some of them, I just happen to meet at work. They're just people in my environment. I will tell you this. The external world is truly more of a mirror than we think it is of the internal world. And when you begin to shift how you treat yourself, the people who don't deserve your time will begin to disappear. And people who do, and people who are healthy and good for you, will begin to show up more and more. Now, one thing I will say is that as you improve your relationship with yourself, and look back on week 1 on designing your ideal environment and your ideal relationships and friends and colleagues, you'll find that as you improve your relationship with yourself, the people that you want, that you've designed, more likely will show up. Literally everything you design in week 1, especially if you follow the formula in week 2, you'll find that they show up beginning at least now, if not already, because now you're beginning to change your relationship with yourself. Now, I'll give you another analogy. Think of a child. Let's say let's say you have a child and you want your child to do homework. If all you do is punish without reward, if they don't do homework, you punish them. And you say, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to punish you. What you'll find is what I'd mentioned in week 2, burnout. And they'll feel a lot of pain, and they're not motivated. And that's the same with your unconscious mind. If you don't do certain things or did not acquire the success that you desire, and or you, for example, let's say you find yourself feeling like you failed at something, and that you failed at, a task or a goal, and then you beat yourself up. If that's all you do for yourself, your relationship with yourself is not going to be very good, just like if you did that to a child. Now, instead, you need to learn how to love and reward this child. If you learn to love and reward, and predominantly utilize two-word motivation like we talked about in week 2, what you'll find is your unconscious mind begins to become more and more incentivized to naturally give you what you want, instead of just running away from what you don't want. And the level of success that you can create is far greater. If you have been motivated away from, and you didn't have a very good relationship so far with yourself, what you'll find is as you improve your relationship with yourself, and that as you begin to go toward what you want, the level of success that you can acquire will be so much more. It will be exponentially more. And another thing I want to say, and this is probably the last thing I'll say on this video about your relationship with yourself, is that if you take good care of your relationship with yourself, you'll find that one of the most interesting concepts that I once learned was the concept of there's no one outside. Now, I want you to contemplate for a moment what that means as I explain this. So in the old days, in a very long time ago, there was a story about this young kid who grew up in this tribe. And one morning, the tribal leader brought all these kids out, including this one kid. And he said, we're going to go on a nature walk, and we're gonna teach you a lesson about oneness. And the tribal leader said, look upon the mountains, the beautiful mountains. It's you. And the children are like, what do you mean? It's me. And the tribal leader didn't answer. And then he turned and he said, look upon the birds, the beautiful birds that fly around the mountains, and the trees in which they built their homes. These are all you. And the children got even more confused. They're like, well, how could it be? I'm me, and that's the mountain, and the trees and the birds, they're not me. And the tribal leader continued to walk and brought them near the shore, and he pointed at the ocean, and he said, look upon the ocean, and the fish, and the creatures. That's you. And the children begin to feel a sense of, maybe he's saying everything we see is us. And the tribal leader continued to take them on this walk, and in fact, they walk and walk and walk, and everything along the way he pointed and said, that's you. And he got back to their home, and he pointed at their parents, and he said, that's you. And then lastly, he pointed at the children and pointed at himself and say, this is you. Now, that's a very interesting story, because when I first heard it, I'm like, is that saying that there is no one outside, meaning we're all one? And there's another story that accompanies that one. So the same tribal leader one time was made aware that there was another tribe that entered their territory. And their scout went to the tribal leader and said, hey, there are others out there that have entered into our territory, entered into our space. What do you want us to do about that? Fascinating response. He said, what others? There are no others. Now, if you begin to consider this, you may find certain thoughts like, does that mean anyone and everyone around me is simply a different version of me? That we're all one, and this is a concept of oneness? That's one way to think about it. What I want you to take away from this, and there could be many things, but there's one concept I want you to take away from this, and you're welcome to take away many more, but this one concept is, if your relationship with yourself, is not carefully cultivated, nurtured, and that you do not exhibit and or practice love and respect towards yourself. If you apply that to the concept of there's no one outside and other people are just another version of you, and that they're your mirrors, they're there as and some would say they are feedback. They are the mirror in your universe to give you feedback about something that you're unconscious of about yourself. If you don't show that love and or that practice that love towards yourself, that relationship are not nurtured or cultivated, what you'll find is that is the limit of how quality your relationships can be with other people. And on the outside it may look good, but if your relationship with yourself is not at the level that you want, the relationship with others may not arrive at that level. So simply put, if you continue to cultivate, nurture, and take care of yourself, I'm not asking you to be selfish. I'm asking you to take care of yourself. If we were to utilize one of the most, iconic, words that, frankly, people call it the golden rule, right? Treat others as if you would treat yourself, and or in the religious text of the Bible, it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. What's interesting is, how could you love thy neighbor as thyself if you don't love yourself? So practice loving and truly giving yourself what you want, and one of the best ways is to set rewards for your goals, and then every goal you have over the next 90 years, that you really do have a reward, and that reward is consistently given to yourself when you hit the goals, and you'll find that you have an easier time hitting your goals, and also you'll have that reassurance from the unconscious that it wants to naturally hit your goals, and that you'll find more and more effortlessness in what you do. And then meanwhile, because of that love increasing, you find that your capacity to love others increases, and your relationship with others improves. And we live in a world of people. As you improve that relationship with yourself, your capacity to love and respect yourself increases, and your capacity to love and respect others increases. You'll find a even more magnificent life, and that you'll experience the most abundance, the most amount of abundance in the space of your relationship, in the space of your self-growth and self-love, and in the space of massive success. And I'll say this last thing. Once again, your level of success and happiness is only limited by what you believe you deserve. And the more you love yourself, the more you believe you deserve.